It's pretty nice. Yeah. So what have you been doing around this time of isolation? How you
Working
been
on
keeping
more
busy?
like a stand-up show kind of idea, writing down notes and things like that. I have
Good.
some fun ideas with that. Keep it in character and stuff and make it unique and different. But yeah, I mean, and then just working on some new close-up stuff and I don't know, just reading, entertaining myself, keeping myself busy. What about you? What
Good.
do you, I
Yeah,
mean,
same thing. I'm doing lots of these, just connecting. It's awesome just getting reconnected with all the magicians, even around the world, and people like you, and just sharing ideas and just kind of seeing how we're coping with all this. Because I know
yeah.
everyone took a big hit, and especially for live entertainers, it's like, okay, what do we
Yeah,
do
yeah,
now?
yeah. I can only
And you
imagine,
see
especially
everyone
with
hopping onto
you.
this virtual world, which is cool. For me,
What are
like
your
in a way,
thoughts
it's
on
like,
like, what's your thoughts on the whole virtual magic show?
it's all right. I'm definitely kind of one of those purists in a way where like it's got to be seen live, but
Yeah,
I'm all about evolving and adapting too, so I'm okay with all that. I think it's interesting. I mean, I've been seeing people put on their whole shows online, which is pretty cool, and it's
yeah,
kind of cool for me as a fan of magic, and like, oh, I've never got to see that guy's work. That's what he does. That's cool.
yeah,
Because some magicians are really like tight to their work, where it's like you got to see them live to see them, and now
yeah,
it's like you're seeing this new side of them and doing you know video magic, and it's a whole nother platform. I mean, I took like a little break. I mean, Instagram is like a fun platform to record stuff, and YouTube and stuff. It's awesome, but for me, it's I always had like a push and pull type of relationship with it. But now I can
yeah,
see myself having more fun with it. Like I actually do want to make more videos and get more on the creative side, and like I do enjoy magic videos that have a little that are kind of like a magic trailer. It's kind of cinematography.
yeah,
It's like really artsy. It's cool because you can make magic look really cool on video. And the only problem I don't like is sometimes maybe watching a video and it's just like this, and there's a guy doing magic, and
yeah.
it's cool, but it's a weird feeling. It's like they're trying to be with you, but it's on a screen.
I totally
It's
feel
just
you. I
different.
like.
That's all it
I
is.
think
Like I
we've
have
had
nothing
this
against it. It's
conversation
just
before.
different.
Like
Yeah.
me, I agree with you totally. Like like, we probably had this conversation before that. I think magic is one of those unique things that you're giving something of yours to people, and that's what you make a connection with people. And I just feel it's impossible to do that live, no matter what it is. Like it's impossible to do magic to me at the level that I like it um, through a camera. It's just, I mean, unless you have
Yeah,
a
it's
high
weird.
production, yeah, unless you're like a high production thing. But even these live interactive shows that I've seen people performing, I can barely watch them because it's just like it's like someone in their family's picking a card. Like they're like, "Oh, here, take a card and show it to the camera." I'm gonna, I mean, like doing this and putting it. I don't know. It just there's something about magic that it's like, especially nowadays with like special effects. Like you could get away with anything. You know what I mean? I could put a
Yeah, and it
green
seems
screen
like through
here.
this, like you could get away with a lot more, and it's almost like, yeah, he's behind the camera. There's all sorts of trickery
Yeah,
going on. It's kind of
it's
like that
both though. You
stage.
can
It
get
really sets us on the stage in a way.
yeah, but I think you can get away with more and you can't at the same time. Because
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
like
I mean, because now we're only working in this frame. Like even
yeah,
like during these lives, we'll share some magic. Sometimes it's like, all right, I gotta adjust the camera, I gotta do this and that, and it's like,
yeah,
and maybe there's a glitch, and you're like, wait, what? Can we do that again?
yeah. No, it's an interesting thing. I see TDH Magic's on there. He's doing amazing
Oh,
stuff with
what's up,
coins
man?
on camera.
Dude, yeah, you got some great coin work. I should have you
Yeah.
on here for me next too.
I'm actually working on a coin trick. How do I get away with this? But I wanted to do like a coins across thing, but in pint glasses, like a shot glass and a pint glass, and one at a time, a coin vanishes from the shot glass, ends up in the pint glass. So that's like a new routine that I've been working on. That's like I have it right here over here. I mean, let's see. So yeah, I've got my shot glass and
Oh,
a
there
pint
it is.
glass, and that's what I've been practicing. It's like this idea I've had, just very hands-off version of coins across that's happening in the glasses, which I think is a cool take on it. It brings it to the bar, but also it seems more impossible because you can't really do sleight of hand.
Yeah, I know that. No, I like that. I like that idea more. It's
Yeah.
like the isolation
Yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And
I do put the glass over it, you know, and you can visually see it vanish and things like that. And you can, it's got the visual and the sound, so it's just building on that. And then I threw in like a little like kickback reset in there. Hey, there's your
what's up?
girl.
We got the hoop magician Shelby. Awesome. Glad to see you on here as well. Yeah, and I love your 3 coin trick.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
in a way,
yeah.
it's like a coins across. But I like, for me, I've always liked the idea of just using 3 coins rather than 4 coins, to be honest. So I really liked it when you showed me. I'm like, man, I like that. Like I would
Thanks.
definitely do something like that. Just like it's just simple, and the idea with the two in the pocket, one in the hand, or two in the hand sort of thing. And it's
Yeah,
not that type of same game. It's more of like a fun display of magic. Like I don't know what happens. The coin just keeps coming back in my hand.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
love that idea of
Well,
having
that was like
the
the
coins in their
well, we
hand.
talked about that. So like, it's like that trick is a great trick, but it was always there was that negative, you know, it was like, how many in the hand? Nope, gotcha. It was too much of a
Right.
gotcha, you know? And then even the ending of that trick where it ends with nothing, you're like, how many do I have? And they say 3, and you're like, nope, gotcha again. You know, it's like
Nothing. Yeah.
you're kind of like punching them in like, and you don't. I always felt like I didn't want to do that. That was my least favorite thing about that trick was like you're punching them down, like you're kind of like, oh, gotcha. Uh, and now like I showed you is changing a few things. It's now like wait, do that again, and layering it to the point that when they do it themselves, it's like I have no idea how you did that, and now it's become magic and not just a trick. And I gotcha, you know.
Yeah. I like the evolution of it. It's like, well, here's this odd thing that keeps happening, and then it's kind of shows those 3 parts of magic, which is I always say there's the magic like look at me, there's a magic look at us, and there's magic look at you, and it
Yeah.
kind of shows that part. And I love seeing magic, and that routine is really great. I definitely give you
Thanks.
mad props for it.
I have to give credit to Nate Staniforth on that one because I was watching his lecture, Nate Staniforth's,
Yeah,
and he talked about he has this thing online right now that I think is what every magician should go download. I think it's not that
yeah,
expensive, but he teaches like one trick in there, but it's not about the tricks. It's more theory, I guess.
that's
But he
cool.
talks about how you can take a
I've been
simple
hearing so
trick.
much talk about Nate Staniforth. I've never actually looked into him, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
give him a look.
He's I don't know. He's a different style than me, of course, but what his whole lecture thing is, if you think you can Google it and find it, but it's basically how to take tricks and make them magic. And he talks about, I think I told you this, like, you know how a lot of people say, don't run if you're not being chased,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
He says, like, screw that. Like, run so fast ahead of them that they're left with no explanation. Like, that's the goal, is to leave them either with no explanation or a false
yeah,
explanation.
yeah, yeah. We were the when you
Yeah,
were
so
about that. So he's the one that had that
changing the
idea.
way I thought about that trick and was like, oh, if you add this one little thing in here, it no longer is a trick. It's magic. It's actually magic, and it takes tricks. It tells you and helps you turn tricks into magic, which
I like that.
it's changed the way I think about every routine. And then he talks about the cone of focus, I think he calls it, but it's basically you have people's attentions at certain moments where they're gonna burn, and it's building that suspense, and you don't want to be doing a move there. You know what I mean? You want to do the cleanup after they've already, you know, or they've come down from that suspense, or before. So you have like all this focus here like this, and then at some point the trick goes like this and they're super focused. And then once you get that reveal, they relax again, and that's when you can do moves. So you have to do moves outside of that focus, because
Right.
once people are focused, you don't want to have to do a pass or anything fancy. So there's always
Yeah.
that moment of like revelation. Do all what you have to do then, if that's means setup. But it changed doing those things in my show really helps, and I can do so much. I set up the entire deck almost like what I used to have to do as an opening trick. I now do as a closing routine, and I can set up the deck right in front of the people,
Yeah.
and they have no idea because they just saw something amazing, and I'm just
You
shuffling the
get the break.
cards.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
that like tension and release, that tension and relax, where
yeah,
like here's the tension where the magic's happening, but everything's already taken care of. You're like way ahead of the
yeah.
game. and then
So
it's
then they're
like
relaxed,
boom, reaction, and
they're
then you
done
have
with
all
that
that
moment,
time.
and I'm now set up for the next trick, and I'm so far ahead of them in that when I start to do stuff that's like more amazing, they're like, wait, that can't be possible. And it doesn't seem that way because I've been legitimately shuffling those cards the whole time, and then just at some random moment. Because I've seen tricks where people, you know, everyone's got your focus again, and they're kind of going through the cards and kind of setting up the deck. And I'm like, you have to.
Yeah, I see that a lot too. It's like it's a weird thing. It's like they could do a trick and then
Uh-oh.
they put on that mode though. Like you could feel it. You could sense them in their butt in their being. They're just like, okay, they're tense and they're going through it and they're like setting it up and they're trying to be relaxed. It's
Yeah.
like it's hard to be. You got to find that sweet spot where it's like the relaxation is so awesome and everyone's just kind of talking and maybe you're just talking with them and flowing with them rather than making anything about it. I think that's the problem. Like with some guys, they always think they're on. Like, why not? You could have a show, but you could be off in the middle of the show. You could be like, oh, this is the relaxation point. Like,
Yeah,
you
you
gotta
can
have
take a
this
drink
moment.
from something. Like if you're taking a sip from beer or something, you can do all kinds of stuff where when you're just standing there and say you want to flip this top card over, right? Using like the side of your body or whatever, right?
Right.
You can do that when the heat is on, they're watching you, and some people are going to look at your hand down there. Or you could, easily grab a drink, right? Drink that. Their attention is here, and you're setting it down, and you're here. It's not that you're on, you're just taking a quick break, and you can set things up, and however that is, even going through the cards, talking to somebody, asking them where they're from, things like that.
Yeah,
That's
or
kind
even
of a Doc
reminiscing
Easton idea.
about the effect, like what happened. I've seen guys, I've done this, like for a deck switch, or even behind a suitcase or behind a bar. You're just talking about the trick that just happened with the deck of cards, and then you want to switch out for a master trick with a trick deck or something.
Yeah.
And you're just talking about that trick, and you're literally just going in your case, taking out the trick deck, and you're like, yeah, wasn't that cool how that trick worked and blah blah blah. Like, I don't know how. I'll try something else, and it's just like they're
Then
not
they
paying
grab a different
attention.
deck.
They're just
Yeah.
flowing with you. And they have
Yeah.
no idea that you switched it wherever it went into your case or your pocket.
Well, that's actually what I used that 3-coin trick for was to do deck switches. It was like a throwaway trick for years and years and years. I think I've been doing that trick as long as I've been doing Magic, and I would always do it, and it was still the gotcha. But it was mostly, let me put the cards away. Let me show you something really quick. Oh, let's go back to the card tricks, and then pull out a new deck of cards, which they think is the same deck. You only have one deck, but it was always kind of a throwaway trick, and then it switched to actually being a standalone amazing effect that people lose their mind. And it was kind of cool just to make that small 1-degree change,
Yeah, 1-degree change. There
Yeah.
you go.
Little John Gustafaro throw in there.
Yeah, no, it's all about that. I think in Magic, there's so much improvement. I mean, it's like any artist. It's like you look at a painting and it's like, oh, I could always add a little something to it. I could always add more to it.
That's
There's
the
always
difference,
little moments
though,
you could tweak it or redo it.
Well, that's the difference between like paintings and Magic, live entertainment kind of things, right? We're doing these tricks over and over and over again, and we're always trying to tweak it, right? How can we make it even better, 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 better? Where a painter, I feel almost bad for them because they paint something and then it goes on the wall and then it is never touched again. And as a painter, as an artist, you can probably relate to the idea that you'll go by and see that painting and you'll be like, oh, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have done that. Oh, I want to redo this. I want to, you're at some point, a painter has to say, okay, that's enough and put it on the wall. Where like a magician and other live entertainment forms, like you're always trying to get better and better and better with, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like you're working on that same painting over again. I mean, as for artists, it's like, yeah, maybe they get inspired to redo the painting or start a new painting that's like, oh, I didn't like the way I did that, so I'm going to try it again. So it's like they are working on it, but they're different pieces of art. Like with Magic, it is that same trick, and that's what makes it a different type of trick because of the evolution of what you're adding the layers into and those little tweaks.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, and I think that's, to me, one of the most fun things is like, I don't know if you've done this, but I've gone back and looked at routines that I've done in the past, and I'm just like, oh my God, I was so bad. Like, why would I think that was a good idea?
No, I've seen that, or things I'll say with a certain trick, the pattern, I'd be like, oh, okay, that sucked. And then you come back at it with a whole fresh perspective. I think it's always great to take a break from Magic and just look back. I mean, there's a lot of Magic I started off doing and I was like, really in love with, and then I maybe had some sort of falling out with it. Like maybe, you have those times where you do a trick and you flash or someone calls you out and you're like, oh, I'm never doing that trick again. Someone called me out on it. But like in the beginning, I think that happens. I think a lot of beginners do that, and I know for me. And then I look back, I'm like, that's actually a really good trick. Why did I not? Why don't I do it? I'm like, oh, it's because of that one time someone called me out, so I just said nope. But now
Yeah.
with like more experience in the belt, it's like you come back to it with a whole new perspective and make it into like a really great piece of
Yeah.
magic. I mean, just like you said with like the three coins, it's that old kind of gotcha trick, but now you made it into like real magic. It's not like
Yeah.
a you know a trickster trick.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, like, what is like, I don't know, what would you say is like the one thing that has changed from from the past to today? Like, what's the one thing that's changed overall for you? Like, if
No,
you
that's
could
a
look
good
back
question.
5 years from now, when you first, or whatever it was, just let's
Mhm.
say 5 years. If you could
Yeah.
go back and think about 5 years ago, what would be like the one thing you're like, oh, I wish I would have done this sooner, or you know what is that?
Yeah, I would say it's totally like what we were just talking about, like that attention to detail. You know, now I see a lot of the details. I still do a lot of the things I did 5 years ago, but now I know that I've added so much more detail, like 1 degrees, and
Yeah,
I think that's definitely the one thing. And to stick to one thing, that's another thing. Like, you know, stick to that magic, you know, and then just work with it. It'll just evolve. It's like I know the things I do today are much different than I did 5 years ago,
yeah.
but it's like the same trick. It's just an evolution of that trick.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And I think for me, it would have been, I wish I would have like embraced the idea of being a magician more. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like for me, 5 years ago, I was like, I don't want to even know I do magic. And then now it's like everybody knows me as a magician, and it's like, okay, I guess I can, take
that's
that
true. You
role and
know,
be more
yeah.
confident with it.
I feel like I'm the same way too. I really hold back. Like I hold out big time, you know. I kind
Yeah,
of wait for those opportunities.
yeah,
I know how to create the opportunities and you know and pitch myself and whatnot, but I really like it when it's like, you know, it's just casual. You're just a normal
yeah,
human being, and then that question comes, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
I do magic. What do you mean? And then that's my leeway into it.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
like to be real soft. But now, like during this time, I kind of think like, you know, I take it for granted. It's like, no, I can't wait to be like showing people what's up and like having
Yeah.
fun and bringing people together. It's like, so that's why I do it. So the
So
fact that I
I
hold
think,
back, I think it's an idea of like we want to be more real or we want to be more like human rather than this kind of magician character sometimes.
yeah,
And that's always a weird line to tread. Like when you know, when you go out to even bars, like sometimes you know, oh, this guy's gonna be Mr. Show Off. You don't want to be Mr. Show Off
yeah,
or the coolest guy at the bar in a way, even though you are. You know, you think you are.
yeah,
It's just a weird vibe, and you sense that from other people, and it's like, how can you just be the best friend there rather than like the show
yeah,
off magician? You know, like I know you like Doc Easton, and Doc Easton's able to do that. He's just able to roll with
yeah.
people and just have fun. And that's what it's all about. You know,
Yeah, totally. But
just
it
connecting.
was funny because like when Frankie and I went to Nashville to perform at the House of Cards, it
Oh
was
yeah,
we went to bars every night, all day, every day, and Frankie, man, he was a freaking beast. I think it's just because he's younger. You know, when if I was doing this in my early 20s like he was, I would have been doing the exact same thing, and I was going along for the ride. But he was just like everywhere he went, it was his goal to show people
yeah,
magic, and
yeah,
I mean, he hustles, and I appreciate that. And it was like we were at the airport having a beer before our flight, and he was showing our waitress magic, and it was
yeah.
like, and I would never do that, and I applaud that so much because it was like, oh, he was breaking the ice for me because then he'd be like, oh, he's a magician
Right.
too, and now I'm showing magic for people, and they freaking loved it. But it was like
Right, that's what's
I
good
need to
about going
do
out with
that
magicians.
more.
They inspire you get inspired from one another. Like, and there's always
Yeah,
that guy that's always on, right? And in a way, I think we always are. If we call ourselves magicians, we all always are magicians. So,
yeah,
and it really is a push. I know, and so I feel the same way. And when you're like a guy like Frankie, it's like really inspires. If you're like, yeah, I should be doing some stuff too. That's awesome. Like people love it. Like this is a great gift. We should be
yeah.
sharing it as much as possible.
And then like
Uh,
it made me think
and the
about like
practice,
right
you know.
now how I can't go do magic for people like I'd like to, and it sucks because it's like, man, there were so many times like I could have like, I was just lazy, and I was like, oh, I'll just do it when I get around to it, and it was like,
Yeah,
because it always felt like, oh, there's that opportunity, I can perform for people whenever I feel like it, but now you can't, and it's like, oh man, all those chances I had to perform for people, and I never did, and it feels like I missed an opportunity. So like thinking about like when we come out of all this, like going and driving to go perform at like Booby Trap on a Wednesday for me is a pain in the ass, but I'm like, it's gonna be worth it
Oh
because
yeah.
A, I get the practice, and B, I get to share something I like so much with other people. So I've been working on more stand-up stuff so I could go perform like every Wednesday at Booby Trap and start getting more material. Because my goal, I mean, I think I got the bar and close-up. I've done that enough times, but the parlor stuff has always been kind of difficult for me to find like effects and tricks that I think fit my character. And I think that's where I want to go more into and try to find tricks and change them and make them unique for me and my character, but also still compact. Because like I'm usually always have kind of props and stuff, and it's like, okay, how do I get that same feeling but minimize it so I can put it in a suitcase and travel with it, you know?
Right, right. I know
So
the evolution of where you start. And so, yeah, actually, I don't really know. How long you been doing magic, and what got you into magic?
well, actually, for me, it was. I'm actually, I guess you would say, more late into it in the sense that, I mean, I always liked it when I was a kid, of course, but I didn't start really studying magic and practicing it as like a hobby until I was like 23, 22, and that's when I started actually practicing it and reading some of the books I had and stuff, and and then it wasn't until about was it 5 years ago that I would say that like I people would like, oh yeah, he does magic, and I was like, oh shut up, and then I think I've been at the castle for 4 years now, and then been performing there for about 3 years now. So uh, yeah, so I mean it really kind of took off, after I became a member at the Magic Castle. So after I became a member at the castle, I was down there like every weekend. And I started out in the basement where I would just be behind the table and I would hear somebody coming down the stairs and I would go sit in the front row. And I was scared to be behind even the table down there. And now
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm pushing people behind the table going like, go, go, go do magic for people.
yeah, yeah.
And like
No,
trying to
that's
get
awesome.
more of these people because I know the feeling. I remember the feeling of being nervous, and I still get nervous. But I mean, the first time I was behind the bar at the castle, I was so freaking nervous. That Thursday, I was so nervous. And this
I
last
bet.
time, I was like, yep, I got this, no problem. And just like, it felt way more comfortable. And that's, I think, what makes most magicians the standout point is like, if you're comfortable. Even if something were to go wrong, you're just like, okay, it happens. Like, I've had tricks totally fail on me. And I'm like, okay, it just happens. Big deal. You learn
Yeah,
that
it's because you've earned that experience, you know.
yeah, and the only way you can like feel that comfortable with people behind like a bar or a table or in front of 100 people is experience and just doing it and realizing, if you bomb, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna get another audience. Not that I'm saying like don't care about not doing well. Obviously, do everything in
Yeah,
your power, but we're human. Even magicians are gonna make mistakes, and it's gonna happen. You know,
yeah,
and don't be afraid of those mistakes because they're gonna happen, and when they happen, you're gonna realize, oh, it's not the end of the world, right? Like,
exactly. You get
just
another
do it again
chance,
and do it.
and it's all part of the practice to get better too.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
what
but
makes
Brett,
it
I know Brett
different?
says you pushed him behind the table.
Yeah,
Going.
I remember that night. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did
And
push
that's good.
Brett.
You know, that's just like what we're saying with Frankie. It's like it's good to have this community and to
Yeah,
have each other, push each other. And just like you said, going into the Magic Castle really made you want to be more pro. It seemed like because you
yeah,
probably saw all the pros and you're like, okay, I want to do this. Let's do it.
yeah. It
And
was
so
that
really
and going
pushed
to
you.
the Monday night jams and just like I went into the
That too,
Monday night
yeah.
jams and I was like, I never felt like I was like worthy or like I wasn't good enough. Like I went to the Monday night jams and was like, oh, these guys are gonna be so much better than me. I'm gonna be like nobody to these guys. And then I realized, oh, actually, I'm I can keep up with these guys, and that kind of
Yeah,
changed
yeah.
my perspective. Not that I was like better or you were better. We're all better at different things. I'm
Right.
terrible at cardistry and really hard sleight of hand. Like I'm terrible at it, and some of the things I see some guys do, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And I know I'll probably never do that. That's why I think I look up to someone like Doc Easton because Doc is the first one to say he doesn't do anything complicated or
Yeah,
super
more simple.
technically difficult, which is
Which is good.
fine
Yeah. Yeah.
because I took a different route than some of these other guys. Like Byron, oh my god, he does some stuff and he's like creating always, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not in that same pool as him. I'm trying to like think differently, But it's just different styles, of course.
Yeah. So how do you approach creating magic? What's your end goal for your magic?
I would say my whole process is like doing something I think if I saw would be like, what the heck? How'd that happen? Or wait a minute, or whatever it is, like that's what I would want to see. And I have such a desire or a hate for cheesy magic, and I don't want magic to feel or look cheesy. So I'm always striving to for that. Is like I want to see magic that I would want to see. I want to do magic that I would want to see, and I don't want it to be cheesy or anything like that. You know, the typical kind of like what you think about a magician. I want to change that idea of what you would think a magician would be, you know, wearing the suits and all that stuff. Which obviously I wear a suit and stuff to look professional, but I don't
But
want to
yeah, the
wear a
cliche.
cheap
You
suit.
want to drop the cliche, the bunny
Yeah, but I'm
hat.
not going to wear a cheap suit because I had a gig. I was at Universal Studios and they had me and another magician. Never met this guy, and I mean, not to talk bad on magicians. I'm sure he's a great magician. And but I went up to a table and the guy, I asked him if he'd like to see some magic, and he said, "Well, you're better dressed or less cheesy than the other guy, so maybe you'll be better." And that, like, I was like, "Oh, dang!" Like, people are gonna judge you in the first few seconds of you going up there, and if you're wearing, no offense to guys who do it, it's fine. I don't care. It's just not me. You go up wearing a
Right.
cheap suit and a tie that has playing cards all over it, you know, and like shoes that you would wear if you worked at a restaurant. I'm like, okay, they're gonna judge you just by that, and they're gonna be like, oh, there's just some like, you know, cheesy. And then they, oh my god, it was so bad. We met the client who was putting on this event at Universal Studios, and he goes up to him just to say hi and thank you, like you would, you know. And the first thing he does, without even having a conversation with these people, is goes, "What's that?" and pulls out a coin behind her ear. And I was like, dude, you barely said hi to this person and you're already doing magic? Like, and not just like amazing magic or even asked if they wanted to see something. It was
Yeah,
like,
just pull the point out of me.
yeah, it was just like, oh, dude, come on, man. You're making me look bad because I'm being associated with you. And it was just like, it was that feeling, that cringy feeling of like, don't do that. Like, why? That's like what you think of a creepy uncle would do who was doing magic at a family gathering. You know what I mean? It just
Right.
felt
I
like
know.
that. And I don't want magic to ever feel like that. And that's why I look up like Doc Eason, like, you know, he's got grandkids and stuff, but I don't think he ever fell into that category of creepy uncle or whatever, you know, or the grandpa who does magic, but totally could, you know?
Right.
But
Yeah.
everybody wants to go see him.
Yeah. It's about finding that character and what works best for you. I think, and I think most magicians we kind of come into that. And it is like a game of wits. Like, magicians, we know things that some people don't know, so we could play that character. And I think a lot of times we see the old wizard or the old magician, and he's real witty and he's real like funny. Funny is
Yeah.
a huge thing. I think comedy and magic go hand in hand. For me it was weird because I got into magic and I wasn't. I was serious. Like I was into like mentalism and sideshow at the very beginning, and I felt like it was hard. It was hard to connect with people without taking it so seriously. So then I
Yeah.
went a whole nother route and got into more variety magic, and comedy is like huge now. I always try to bring in as much as I can. Like I wish I was a lot more funny. I just love magicians like Gazzo and the guys that are just freaking hilarious. They don't even have to do
Oh,
magic. Like Doc
they get
Eason.
away with murder.
Yeah, and they're not even doing magic. They do like three tricks, and like the whole hour, they're just shooting the shit, just like
Yeah.
being hilarious.
I think there's a balance. Like I think when I was in Chicago, the bar magician there, it was just gag after gag after gag, and I wanted to see like some cool bar magic. And
Right?
I mean, it's just a different style, but it was just, and the gags were funny, and it was like unique gags, like gags I haven't seen before. And that was what was interesting about being in
That's
Chicago
cool.
was you're seeing tricks and gags that you normally don't see, and it was like, oh, those are kind of funny, but I was like also like, it was almost too much. It was like, okay, I get it, and then you almost don't not care, but like I stopped paying attention because it was like I want to see magic, and he would build you up to the suspense, and it was just a gag, and like
Another
those are
guy.
cool every couple times, but it was just like after four of them, I was like I'm kind of I want to see some magic, you know. This is called the Chicago Magic Lounge, and it's just gag, 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 and there was
Yeah, that's
no
when you
like
should have something at the end at least. I mean, because that's kind of what Gazzo does. He does pull you up, and then he pulls the rug, and then they're starting over again, and then he finally does some magic.
yeah,
As long as you follow through with it, I think that counts. Because But I've seen people do what you're talking about too, and I see that can work as well because it's weird. You know, it's like it's like watching a movie and you don't really get the movie, but it's an entertaining movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I liked it, but I didn't get it. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing I give him credit for though is like, because I forget his name, but it was like he just went out there and just did it, and he was laughing, having a good old time doing it, and it was just like me sitting back and being like, okay, maybe I don't get the joke, okay, whatever, you know, it's not for me, whatever it is, you know, but people were loving it and laughing the whole time, and I'm like, and he had their attention, and that's one thing that's hard to do at a bar, but I was just like, I want to see like that no fucking way moment, no like, oh, I'm sorry for cussing, but like, no way, that's crazy, you know, like,
Right. Right. Yeah.
but like, I never got that. It was like all the suspense, gag, gag. And then once I sat back and was like, okay, I'm not gonna get that WTF moment. I just know everything's gonna be a gag. I got to relax a little bit, and then I was finding the humor and everything. But it was like, I kind of wanted to see that, like, no way, and bring out bar stuff and do like kind of what you would think bar magic would be. But it's just different. I mean, it's always different.
Yeah. Everyone has their own style. Here, I have a couple questions I always like asking people.
Okay.
What was your first experience with magic before you were a magician? What was the greatest magic you saw before you got into magic? Do you remember?
I mean, I remember Penn and Teller. I loved Penn and Teller. And I remember one moment, it like stands out to me, was I was watching like one of their TV specials, and they were on a beach. I mean, this kind of put my idea of like, you know, TV magic and real magic, but also like, oh, you could do that in real life, and how like far someone would go for a magic trick. And it was, they're on a beach, and someone could name any card. And like, for example, they would say, name a card, and they say Jack of Hearts. And they would yell out to this person who's like floating on a boogie board on the water. And then they would hold up their boogie board and it would say Jack of Hearts. And the person like freaked out. And it was like, wait, how's that freaking possible? And like, I don't think it was a stooge or anything. And they weren't. There were no stooges. But what they actually did was they placed all 52 cards around the beach and memorized where all 52 cards were. And so if they named any card, they just knew where to point and reveal oh, we knew you were going to say that card because in this coconut next to this tree, it says 5 of hearts. But if they would have said Jack of Hearts, they would have pointed to the person on the boogie board. But that person doesn't know. It's like that unique experience every time. And what was funny was they showed bloopers of them failing.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, that's funny because they couldn't remember all 52. They like forgot. So they like,
that's cool. I love that about Penn and Teller, how they kind of show you the insides of it, and it's still magic. It's still magical no matter what, whether you know it or not.
Yeah. You know? Like, and I was like, the person said like 6 of clubs or something, and they kind of just looked at each other and was like, yeah, I don't remember what that one is. And it was super funny to me, and I think that was kind of a standout moment for me. And then I did watch the Masked Magician, and people always ask me about the Masked Magician, and I think what's funny is like he created more magicians today. He made more people interested in magic. It just took 10 years for them to grow up and become magicians, but everyone thought he was destroying magic, and he actually made it more popular and created more magicians for what he did, even though I know he's like a terrible magician apparently.
Yeah, and it is the same thing with Penn and Teller, because like, yeah, they exposed a lot, but I think for them, and even the Masked Magician, you could say in some respect that they helped understand, help people understand magic more, maybe appreciate it more, to see the work behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, in some cases, maybe they're revealing a trick that's just like, oh, it's that easy, really? And then maybe people are like, oh, magic's not that great now. But in some cases, you'll see like, wow, look at all that work, like you said with the card trick, with all those different places. That's a lot of work.
But like they're like, for example, I think what they were known for was like doing the cups and balls, and then revealing the cups and balls using clear cups, right? But they did it in a way that was like an art form, and like you watched it and you were like, you were still fooled even though you were seeing everything take place.
Right.
And that's what's interesting. I mean, you can watch Gazzo a million times and he's pulling out those oranges from the little bag that he runs out from behind the table, and you can see the bag's full of stuff, and like you obviously know like that's where he's grabbing them from, but no one cares or willing to hold that sense of disbelief and watch what he's doing because they're so impressed by it that he's like commanding a whole room, a whole street corner.
Yes. What's up, Ember? How's it going? I saw you at the last Beer and Magic. That was awesome. Good to see you on here. Yeah, it's really interesting. Now that we talked about the Magic before you got on the Magic, what's some of the greatest magic you've seen as a magician now?
Some of the greatest magic I've seen. I've
Yeah.
seen so much.
I mean, and that could be, it doesn't have to be necessarily magic. It could be a movie, you know, like whatever you
Uh,
consider magic, you know?
oh man, I work at UCI in the engineering department,
Yeah,
and
so you must have seen a lot of great, you know,
that
magic.
stuff's magic to me. Like that stuff is crazy to me. Like what these guys are doing. I mean, I like the material science guys. I mean, they're creating materials that are the microscopically set up in a way that like prevents whatever it is, you know, a disease or whatever material surfaces that like disinfect naturally, and they're using like plants and things like that to create these surfaces. Like that stuff's crazy to me. Using like octopus skin to create a different type of camouflage, and that's
Oh,
like
wow, yeah, stuff like that would
invisible
be
to
mad.
like certain radars and stuff. Like that stuff's like crazy. I mean, UCI even has like a nuclear power plant like that they
Really?
do experiments on. You can like
I
go and
had no
look at the,
idea about that.
yeah, no one knows there's a nuclear power plant in Irvine.
In Irvine?
Yeah,
No
like,
way. What
and
the heck?
you can actually go and stand over the core of it and see the core of the
Really?
nuclear power plant. Like, yeah, it's
You
underwater
can
and
see
stuff.
into it?
Yeah, it glows.
No way.
It's
Well,
like
that's cool.
glowing.
That'd be cool to check it out. Yeah.
I
I had
would,
no idea.
I might get to go tour it, but it's pretty crazy. I mean, they're doing all kinds of experiments there and tests and stuff. Obviously, you know, like it's still super safe, but it's kind of an interesting thing to be like, dang, man, that's just happening right there. There's all kinds of stuff, you know, and
Right?
that's
And then
like,
you got some mad scientist work just right by you, right next
yeah,
door. I mean, to be a part of that is awesome too, to
yeah.
see the
And I have
evolution
friends
of
now
art
that
and
like help me with
science.
stuff. Like my buddy helped me here. I'll turn the camera this way. That bell there. This is there's an
Oh yeah,
LED light. That little LED light board right there.
yeah.
It like we connected it to a Super Nintendo controller, right? It's a wireless one, but I can program it to like display different things. So like I'm trying to add a little more like technology into my show with like little animated GIFs and stuff that pop up on there that say like drink, and like
Right,
I can
right.
display any card you want to name.
Card
I
you
can get
want.
it to display, so I haven't really done too much magic with it other than like revealing someone's card, which I think is a funny moment when like they pick a card and it's already lit up on the board and they're blown away by that, and I was like just starting to play with what I could do with that. But I don't want to make that like the magic prop. Like I don't want it to be like
Right, right.
considered magic. I want that just to
Yeah,
be
to kind of be used as
the
some little
salt and
tool. I mean,
pepper.
it'd be even great to use it as some sort of dual reality, even like if you had it like ahead of, or maybe in the middle of the audience, so people only see it from that half of the audience, and then people
So
in the
I
front.
I try to play with that. So the person who was at the bar, I would get them to focus on me,
Right.
and then I was like, look at me, but I'm gonna have someone name any playing card, and I would inadvertently be like, you're gonna see, it's gonna stand out. You'll see it light up
Right.
or
Yeah.
something.
Stuff
You know
like
what I mean?
that.
Like
Yeah.
use the right wording. I mean, I literally only used it a few times, but it was cool. And I had people even going like asking like how I'm doing that, and I was like, don't worry, that's not magic, that's science. And even Lara was like, that's a funny line because you're being a little honest with them. Like, that's not
It's
magic,
true.
it's
Yeah.
science. But it's also, they're like, wait, no, that's science. But also, how do you know
But
what
it's
their
magic
card
too. What
is?
the heck?
Yeah, and like, how are you getting it to display every time this card appears and all these things? And like, it was kind of funny, and it was like, it was fun. It was a fun idea. But yeah, I think, and my Lara was telling me, is like, that's what you're going to be known for, is that bell and that sign, because it's just unique. And that's what I think I've been trying to do with magic more, is like, we all do the same things, but what do you do with that thing that makes it unique to you, right? Like
Yeah.
100 people, you know, thousands of people do cups and balls, but why is your version the one people like or stand out? When they watch your version, is it because there's a coconut at the end of it, or what, you know what I mean? Like I came up with this term of what's your coconut, because when I think of the cups and balls, I now think of Laro and his
Right.
coconut,
Right. The coconut.
right?
Yeah.
So like, what's your coconut? What's your thing that makes you you, like, you know, and
Yeah, and it really is that. And like, a lot of artists talk about that. The hardest thing is to be yourself and to find who you really are and what you want to portray and how
yeah,
you could put that into what you do in your art, as a
yeah,
musician. And you're definitely conveying that, you're putting in the work that you do love and who you
yeah,
are. And just like Laurel, like he's Hawaiian, so he brings us the atmosphere
yeah,
and the coconut, it all makes sense. And,
yeah.
hang loose, brother.
But what I think what it is too is like not just like bringing your character and what you like into it and care about, but also making people care. Like, why should they care? Why should they watch what
Yeah, why
you're
are you
doing?
doing this?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's like my biggest pet peeve is like people bring out magic props or things like that, and this just takes time and practice. And like I always think I'm like, why? Why do you have, for example, someone told me this at the castle, uh, using the clarity box. I think most magicians know what the clarity box is by David Regal. It's a great effect. But if you bring that out at the bar, it's kind of, someone's like, well, that looks like a magic prop. You have this clear little box. It's not like a thing that you would find at a bar. It's not a thing that, you know, it's unique to magicians, right? So how can you do that same thing but put it in a bottle? So like doing those little things, it becomes okay. That's something they're familiar with, and when you introduce something they're familiar with, you don't have to say, here, inspect this. It's like that's why magicians use coins and cards, because those are what are common to people. People know what those things are. But when you bring out this little box, people are a little already suspicious of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've been
Yeah,
trying to
it's it,
see.
it's a fine line too to introduce like certain props that are just different from the ordinary world. There's got
Yeah,
to be like a good explanation, and sometimes, yeah, I have a little pet peeve too with it. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. But
yeah,
unless, depending on the character, like I've seen people take out like odd props and use it well, and they bring out this whole other side of them where it's kind of like it is childlike. It's like, here, I've got this great little toy that
yeah,
you've
and that's
never seen
fun.
before. I mean, and that makes sense because they have
Yeah,
this passion and love for this, and we don't know what it is, but we're curious now because this guy loves it. What the heck is
yeah.
it, you know?
No, 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 you can totally do that, and I've seen that where people introduce this as a bar game or whatever it is, and then you do magic with it, and you're like, wait, how does that happen? Kind of like a Dean's box, right? Like it's kind
Yeah,
of
right. Yeah,
it's a
it's
unique
interesting.
object, right? But if you can introduce that in like a very logical way, people get a little more interested in it. If it's like an heirloom or something. I think
Yeah,
David
yeah,
Regal has this trick where it's a box, and like things happen in the box, and it's all these random props, but he created a story behind it, and that these were like left behind for him. And then you start carrying it, and it goes into the actual magic. And I'm floored by this magic trick. It's so amazing. It's such a good, strong trick. And I'm like, wait, I don't know how any of that's possible. Like, I'm so blown away by it. But, like, it was more because of the story he tells behind it. Because usually I would see that trick and just be like, what? Why? Why all this random stuff? It doesn't make sense. But then it works out. It's great. It's a great trick. I don't want to tell anyone
yeah.
because I want
I
it.
think that helps a lot in magic. I mean, I do some magic, like kind of referring back to what we are talking about. Like, there's some tricks I used to do, but it didn't make sense for me at the time to do it.
Yeah.
So eventually, I created a story or a pattern to connect with it,
Yeah. And then people
and
care more.
they care more. And like, as cheesy as it may be, I still when I pull out like silver dollars or half dollars, like I do say it's for my grandfather because it is true because I did have an inheritance of silver coins, even though
Yeah.
they're not the original ones I use. It
Yeah, I did
has
too.
that true thing, and I think as cliche as that sounds, and it brings that connection and that sentimental value for me and then others because then other people were like, oh yeah, I have some of those from my grandfather, so that's that
Yeah.
connection. So I kept it because at first I'm like, I don't want to say that line. I felt like it was just overdone, and maybe, but then I figured out how to way to say it, and add some funny lines,
Yeah.
and it's just only
No, it's
through
funny. I've
evolution
had
of
where I'm
that.
telling a story and people remember the story more than they remember the trick. Oh,
So
sorry.
what were you saying? You were saying so people remember
The
the
story.
story more than the trick. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you would tell this story and then either do a trick to the story or tell the story and then do a trick related to the story. And I remember people would come up afterwards and ask, "Is that story true?" Or "That's such a great story." You know what I mean? It was like that's out of the entire show that I did, 20 minutes or whatever. That's the thing that stuck with them was that story. And then I was like, "Oh, it's not always about what we're doing; it's what we're saying more than anything." And I think
Yeah, and
that's,
it's how you convey your story. It's totally true. I mean, if you could, if
yeah,
that's a great piece of advice. Is like, how can you make people remember your story? You
yeah,
know, remember what they want to say, and to keep it simple is good. I mean, I was talking about this yesterday. We got to have like a straight line, like A to B, not like, okay, you took out the cards, you started dealing the cards, and we're counting, and then you said think of a color. You know, then they forget. But if it's like,
yeah,
okay, I took a card, threw it up on the ceiling, it was stuck on the ceiling. You know, that's just like point A to B.
yeah.
So it's like,
Well, that was
how do you
that.
find that? You know?
So that's what I realized was like, I've done tricks that are super convoluted, and it was like people were just like they were amazed because none of it made sense, but they
Right.
couldn't follow the rabbit hole I was trying to take them down. And it was like, okay, so the saying I have is keep it simple, stupid. Like,
Yeah.
don't
Yes.
overcomplicate it. Straight A, like you said, A to B. You sign that card, you put it in the deck. I shuffled it up, I threw it to the ceiling, and it's stuck there. If it's any more complicated than that, it's like a little too convoluted. And I see guys do tricks like that where it's like they keep them, they have them, but when you break down all the other stuff, it's very, very simple. It vanishes here and appeared in a possible location. Those
Yeah.
can be
You know,
some of
and
the strongest things.
yeah, even like a coin trick. I mean, it's I do this coin trick where it's just basically a production and a vanish of a single coin.
Yeah,
But it's like adding that little patter or that simplicity of it, of even like going back to like, you know, the whole idea of a production is like now there's life, and then
yeah,
disappearance, now there's death. So it kind of relates to life and death that way. But it's just a production and a vanish. But it's just adding a little story behind it. They remember it more clearly. Like there was nothing in his hands, and there was this coin out of nothing, out of our imagination, and then
yeah,
it vanished because it was just in our imagination. And it's like I like how they could remember that simple story rather than like, oh yeah, you pulled a coin and then it vanished. You know, it's like now they have more of an attachment. So even making something that seems so simple and magic and creating maybe a better story with it
yeah. Well,
is
that's
how
what I
I like to
realized
look at it
with
too.
I just posted a video on my Instagram that like kind of I think sums that up was the dollar bill, the shot glass, and the ring.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think yeah, I saw
And
that.
I mean, I thought, okay, that's a cool trick. Like, I thought it was a super clever way to do this. And I posted it, and people were like blown away by it. Like, I had people going like, "Wait, how's that? Where did it go? That's not possible." And I was
Right.
like, "Oh, sometimes it's like as much as I'm like, oh, that's stupid. It's like not a big deal." People were so blown away by it that I realized, oh man, wait, it's so simple and so clean that like people are like intrigued by it almost, you know?
Right.
And like when I do it, like I was like, oh, you know, maybe this can be a really good kind of opening. So like the way I'm thinking of doing it is doing it on a stage, kind of, you know, not too big of a room, but you can do it in a big room if you wanted to, but it's so simple enough that even if you're 30 rows back, you can follow along what's happening. You know, he puts a shot glass in his hand, he puts a dollar bill, drops a ring into it, and then the ring is gone, just magically, right? And then he brings it back. Like super simple, so you can follow along, even though it's this small little thing, you can still follow along and still be impressed by it. And I realized, oh, and you don't have to say much. It's like, here it is. Here we understand what these are. It vanishes. Okay, we all understand it vanished, and then he brings it back, and there's no moves. There's no. It's very clean enough that like you can follow along, and it's magical to me. And now I'm like, it kind of gets me excited, and I was like, okay, I'll post this, see what happens. And then I was like, oh, okay, I have something here, and it kind of made me more excited about it. And that's kind of the hard thing right now is that, and the beauty about beer magic is that we can go test these ideas. You read about this, you try it, then you go try it
Yeah.
and you see what the initial response is, and then you realize, okay, this is not going to go anywhere. No matter how much I practice it, people are just going to be like, okay, that's weird. And then it's our job to try to figure out how to make people care or make it a good trick, and that could take years. Or you have something like this that it's so simple, so to the point that it's A to B, and people are just like, wow, that's amazing. So I think
Right.
that's one of those things. I mean, card to ceiling, all the classics are classics because they're super simple. The card goes in
Yeah,
the
I mean, when
middle.
you think about like when people will tell you about effect magic, like most common I hear is like the card through glass, you know, and the card through ceiling. They always think like, oh, you get the card on the other side of the glass. Like, what is it that
Yeah.
you hear more often that people say? Like, come up to you like, oh, I remember this one trick.
Oh, the build a lemon is always like anything to a lemon or a fruit. Like I always hear people go like,
Oh yeah.
my $100 bill was in the lemon, and it was like Like that's a big one I always hear all the time. I'm getting
Yeah.
great reactions with the Jack Daniels bottle, and like it's kind of like I heard people walking away where like they're saying like, but that card was in the bottle before the person signed the card, and like that's I kind of like that idea that they're like, wait, there's like a time displacement. Like the card was in the bottle before they signed the card, and then the card in the bottle was their signed card, and they're like, wait, and they're left with no explanation other than it has to be magic, and that's what kind of Nate Stanford was talking about was like, leave them with nothing, like
Yeah.
oh there can't be sleight of hand, there can't be this, and if that means getting out ahead of them and saying, look, I'm not going to touch anything, on this time, then okay, say that because then when they go back and replay it, they go, no, there's no way because he didn't do anything. Well, I did something, but it was outside of your focus, right? It was on these
Right.
sides
Right.
of that focus. And when they replay that part where they were focused, they're not left with any explanation. And sometimes you don't even want to leave them with the wrong explanation, right? Like if they said, oh, those are trick coins. He's just using like magic coins. Like, okay, unless that's what you want them to think, if that's the story, is that these were magical coins. But even if they just think, well, maybe he was using, gimmicks or something, like that kind of ruins the effect.
Yeah,
But if
it's
you
even
can
like
just,
I hate when people are like when they say like, "Oh, it's sleight of hand," and they just
yeah,
excuse it as sleight of hand. And they don't even want to dive into it. They don't even know anything about sleight of hand, but they just excuse it as that. And I'm like, well, now I got to just slow it down and make it look like it's not anything.
yeah,
It's not going fast. They just want to excuse it for something. Oh, it's magnets.
yeah.
So they
Oh,
just
it's
feel like they're
magnets.
not wrong. They're
Well,
just
my
like,
favorite
yeah,
is
I
I
know
do the
it.
Rubik's Cube, right? Like I'll just shake it and it solves, and they'll just, that's a trick cube. You just bought that
Trick
at the
cute,
store.
right? Yeah, yeah. And
And
it's
then when
like,
I
oh
hand it
man,
to them, and I go, no, here, you can play with it. I don't care. And then they play with it, and they go, well, that's a real cube. And then they go, okay. Like, it's kind of like that weird thing. And that's like why I changed the way I do the cube thing now is like, I now start with handing out both cubes. Mix them up. And I think that's one thing you have to do if you're going to do cube magic is you you have to let them mix up at least one of the cubes. Like, at least one or the cube, whatever it is, or both.
yeah,
If you can have them mix up all of them, have them touch and mix up all the cubes if you can, like, or at least one of them, because then you're kind of convincing them, like, no, this is a normal cube, and I'm gonna do magic with it, without having to say, here, please inspect this Rubik's cube, you know?
yeah. I heard there was some talk on Rubik's cubes in this past week. I've been talking to some magicians, and they said, it's an interesting one because it's a puzzle, and they're doing magic with it. And they say at the end of it, like no matter how it matches up, a lot of people they just want to see that cube solved or it transforms into something. So your idea with it transforming into Skittles,
Yeah,
or solving it at the end because for some reason they think when it's solved it fits well in their mind because now it's like, oh, now it's completed,
yeah,
and the puzzle's done. And I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. Like, I don't do any Rubik's Cube magic, but I know you do lots of it. You do
yeah,
all this
yeah,
amazing stuff. I don't even know how it's done. I don't want to know because I like to
yeah,
enjoy the magic,
yeah. I think we have like 2 or 3 more minutes, and
Yeah,
they're
this
gonna
is
cut
it.
us off,
So
right? So,
let's narrow it down. Any last advice? What's the best advice you've gotten in your life?
it's you. It's right. Like so, I always said this is the one thing that made me, I think, propel so much in magic was that I could sit at a bar and have a conversation with somebody for a half an hour and not show them a magic trick, and then show them a magic trick once they realize they do magic, and they like me so much more. So if you can get somebody to like you before you do any magic, you've already won them over, and then you can blow their minds away with magic. So you have to be personable and have a conversation with somebody, and if you can do that, you can be a great magician. So
Yeah, yeah, be you and use that power to find who you are and really
yeah.
pull that out. I think people are afraid of who they are. I think this is a perfect time with this isolation. Like we're really
Yeah.
reflecting and getting to know
Yeah.
who we are. So this is a time to do the work and pull out things that you love that's about yourself. And
Yeah.
when it's done, now we could share that. We could share who we really are
Yeah.
underneath the mask.
Dude, I appreciate you having me on. Keep up the great work, and then hopefully in a few months we'll be back doing magic at bars together.
Yeah, definitely, man. Take
All right.
care of yourself. Stay safe. Check them out. I put out a bunch of links on our story, and we'll be sharing some of your posts too.
Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you,
Later,
dude.
Jack. Cheers,
Take
everybody.
care. Awesome.